Hey, good evening, everyone, and happy Sunday night to everyone out there in Navigating Leadership. Unlock the Middle's platform for finding and discovering things in education that are just germane to what we do all the time. My name is Dean Packard. I am the co-host of Unlock the Middle, and normally by my side tonight, but not here because he's with his family on a family first night, Principal Chris Starcheski, who's out and away. But we have a great roundtable tonight. We've got a great topic that we're going to dive into when we're looking at equity within our schools. So what I'm going to do quickly is we're going to toss it around the room here. We're going to introduce everybody, but I'm going to have the honor of introducing Dawn last. So let's kick it down to Beatrice first, because we're going to make sure Beatrice was the first one to go tonight anyway. Beatrice, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from.
I love it. Hi, my name is Beatrice Martinez. I'm from Garland ISD, and I am the proud principal of Classical Center at Vile Elementary. And I grew up in Garland. I live in Garland. I was privileged enough to be able to come back and work for the same district that helped build my education.
Outstanding. Welcome. We're glad to have you here. I'm going to work on my pronunciation of that name as well, and I know I'm going to get better as the night goes on. Trelane from the state of Massachusetts, welcome back to the table. Great to have you.
Thank you for having me. So excited to be here. I'm Trelane Clark. I am also a proud principal at Hooks Elementary School in Chelsea, Massachusetts, just next to Boston, Massachusetts, my home. And I am proud to say that this is my 25th year in education, but my second year as a principal.
Well, welcome back to the table, Trelane. It's always great to have you here with us. And Principal Tovar is back in the house. How are you, my friend?
Hello, everybody. Josh Tovar here, Memorial Pathway Academy, ready to rock and roll and talk about these things, because you know what? Only discussing these kind of topics makes us better. This is RPLN tonight, and making sure that we work together, getting ideas from around the country to make sure that we service our kids in the best way possible. Because you know what? We're only stronger together.
That's right.
Only stronger together, and I love that. And that leads me to our guest of honor tonight, Dawn Harris. I'm going to read your bio, Dawn, and I'm going to let you take the stage for a moment. So Dawn is a passionate and energetic educator who lives by the motto of relationships first. Her enthusiasm for creating connections is infectious, and she thrives on the opportunity to learn about things that motivate and inspire teachers and students alike. In her roles as secondary English language arts educator, gifted and talented teacher, and associate professor of teacher and education, Dawn continuously strives to bring authentic and engaging learning experiences to students of all ages. Throughout her career as an educator, Dawn has taught in urban, rural, and suburban districts, meeting the needs of children from a wide range of backgrounds and cultures. In addition to general ELA coursework, Dawn's classroom teaching experience also includes teaching English as a second language, creative writing, film studies, and response to intervention instruction. Dawn's professional teaching experiences have been showcased in scholarly journals and at local, regional, and national and international conferences. Prior to becoming an educator, Dawn spent more than 10 years in marketing and publishing in the private sector. I think that's going to be an interesting segment when we get going here. The experience that has given Dawn an insight into the skills and knowledge students need in order to be prepared to enter into a competitive global workforce or into college once they leave high school. This insight helps to support Dawn's work in developing veteran, novice, and pre-service teachers as they seek to educate students for tomorrow's work today. As a licensed curriculum instruction and professional development specialist, Dawn's primary goal in all things is to support educators with planning, learning that ignites curiosity and that engages and inspires students in a way that impacts their growth and achievement every single day. Dawn, welcome to the table. How are you tonight? Great to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks so much. I'm excited to be here. Wow, thanks. This is I don't even know what to say. I'm just excited to be in this space. I love this topic that we're diving into. You know, this is kind of my wheelhouse. We talk about the work that I do with educators and school districts outside of my classroom. You know, when I'm not in my classroom, I'm working with teachers and principals to really just try to figure out how do we dig into this thing called equity and to really build anti-racist learning environments so that all of our kids are thriving in those classrooms and learning about, you know, how do we interact with one another so that we can just, you know, live in this world together and just make this world a better place, just living beside and working beside one another. It's a lot of the conversation that I have with my high school students every single day. You know, we don't get to choose who we get to maybe sit next to or work next to every day of our lives. So we've got to make the most of that. interaction and relationships, and the more that we can learn about one another, the better. So I'm super excited to be here talking with all of you about this tonight, this very important topic. Thank you.
We are excited to have you. And let's just throw this right in the middle of the table right now. Let's throw the word inclusivity right smack in the middle of the table. As educational leaders, we're always dealing with the fact of champion for every student that comes into our schools. So I'm going to first start off, if I can, Don, if you could just give us the version through your lens of inclusivity, what that means, how we as educational leaders, teachers, community members have to understand the word in itself, so we can have a real platform to work off of tonight.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I think this is the perfect place to start with inclusivity. You know, we talk about inclusivity, we're talking about every kid in our classroom, right? We know that we have this diverse array of learners who are spending time with us in our learning environment, and who are looking to us to bring these rich, authentic learning experiences to us, but in every classroom in the school. And so as we talk about inclusivity as a whole, we're talking about, you know, all of our students of color, our Black and brown students, you know, our students who are gay and trans students who belong to the LGBTQ community. And we talk about inclusivity through the idea of how do we engage students in a way in the classroom and even throughout all of their experiences at school in a way that allows them to see themselves reflected in all that's going on in the school, whether it's the curriculum or they're walking down the hallway, what do they see in the hallways, how do they interact with leaders in the building, and then using that, you know, just that general idea that we've got all of these learners, that we are obligated, it is our task to meet the needs of every learner and to figure out how do we do that? How do we really tap into that? What kind of data are we looking at? You know, are we going in and are we really analyzing when we're thinking about data, the different kinds of data through an equity lens so that we can really tap into, you know, this idea of creating inclusive learning environments, whether we're talking about behavioral interventions, whether we're talking about academic interventions, whether we're talking about the depth of the curriculum, whether we're talking about, you know, right down to if we get down to it and we're talking about, you know, standardized assessments even, are we looking at those individual item analyses that we love to examine so much as leaders, right? What do each of those say, right? We look at that data, but are we really looking at who exactly on those, even down to those individual item analyses, are struggling the most, and really finding a way to bring all of those folks together in the classroom with understanding, learning to understand one another through this teaching and learning through this lens of equity. And I think more important is whatever that perceived dominant culture may be, right, in your learning environment, helping them to understand the others who are around them and giving equal voice and equal access to all learning that occurs in the classroom. We have to figure out what is our student population, what does that student body look like to really be able to dig deep into equity, which is what we're going to be talking, you know, a lot about this evening.
I love that. Absolutely good. Beatrice, for you down in your school, inclusivity, what does that mean to you? And what comes to mind when you start using that term?
You know, when I think of inclusivity, it's making sure that everything that we do is intentional and purposeful. Sometimes something as simple as the way that we're grouping students. For example, we have a project and it's very easy as a teacher to say, you know, turn and find a partner in the classroom. And sometimes for some students, it may not be as easy. You know, they want, you know, students tend to go with their friends and people they know. So finding even strategic ways to partner and to group students so that they're able to collaborate with one another. I'm thinking of a quote that comes to mind, and it says, you know, if you want to meet someone, ask them out, you know, for dinner. But if you really want to know them, make the dinner together. And so I think that we need to start thinking of those opportunities for our students as well. And it's not just in elementary. Sometimes as students get older, they go through different phases where, you know, they want to do things on their own and they don't want maybe parents or the adults as involved. But it was very interesting because over a couple months ago, we had the opportunity to speak to some high school students. And especially after going through the year that we've had, one of the main things that they were asking is, before we jump to the instruction, I would just love it if my teacher can just ask me how I'm doing. just how I'm doing, have a hello, a conversation that has nothing to do with learning before jumping into the learning. I want to make sure that I feel like I'm not invisible. And so it's sometimes those small things that can go a long way in building relationships so that our students know that as individuals, they do matter.
I love that you say that, because relationships trump anything we do. If a child doesn't feel as though you are connected with them prior to the learning starting, you've already started from behind. And again, you want to close those gaps, get to know each kid that comes into your classroom, get to know them well, get to know how they tick and what they're all about. Great stuff. Trelane, let's talk about inclusivity through your lens.
Yeah, so when I think about inclusivity, I think also very broadly, not only, of course, with our students, but also with our families, with our teaching staff, and everyone having an opportunity to actually be involved in what's happening in the school as much as possible. And it's part of that, having that voice and having a say in things. I think about the opportunities that we can provide teachers to actually say, you know what, yes, I would love for this thing to happen, but what does it actually look like for you? How would it feel if we implemented this thing, right? So while I might think it's a great thing, I love being able to talk to my leadership team and ask them, okay, so what might teachers think about how we approach this thing? I also think about inclusivity in terms of not just including students in terms of their academics, but also how we respond to them in terms of behavior. And so one of the I had a really interesting opportunity this past week with a student of mine, a first grader, and she was having a really difficult time. And I said, okay, well, let's just go for a walk. And I asked her some questions about what kind of things she likes, and she loves cats and other things, and came into the office, and we colored a paper together and asked her a few more questions, and she was totally fine after that. So it's just, having her included in how I responded to her, I think made all the difference in the world. So I think it comes from all different angles as much as possible, that we need to include folks also so that they feel like they belong in the community. And that's another huge piece of inclusivity that sometimes I think we don't talk about enough, is that aspect of belonging.
Student voice, belonging, absolutely right on the money. Principal Tovar.
I'm just thinking one thing that's left out, having been at all levels, is the belief system from the adults. The belief that kids in 8th grade, all kids, can take algebra, because kids are excluded. Oh no, it could only be this percent out. Oh, it could only be this GPA. It could only be this. Or when they're in high school, oh, they could only take pre-AP. Oh, only this group. No, it's about belief in those kids. It's about finding that connection to the content and the character of the student to build them up, to be able to overcome that challenge. And as a personal example, I've said it many times, I was a knucklehead in school, but I'm also an EL student since I was little. And when I came to this country, I never thought anything but learning English. When I'm a product of full immersion. And in elementary, I was never given any kind of advanced class or anything, but I did test out, and I didn't know this. My mom allowed me to be tested when I transitioned from elementary to middle school. And then when I was in middle school, I'm like, why am I in this class? I'm with all the smart kids. And there was only one color, okay? I was only with one group of kids. And then I was never fostered that, hey, you placed in here. So the educators in the system never said, you can't do it. The test says you can't do it. So I've never seen that change. And I'm going on 29 years in the system. And you have to get the kids to believe in their ability and capacity. And then I've had many fights with a lot of team members that say, oh, we need to get rid of these kids the first 2 weeks. Oh, we need to get rid of these kids from algebra. Oh, from pre-AP. We need to get rid of them. No. How are you going to build them up? Because they all come back from different backgrounds, EL students, SPED students. It doesn't matter what. If they have the ability or the doors open for them, let's promote that. Because you know what? It's all of them. They're all the future of this country. And the higher we get them to the next level. So I'm just saying from personal experience, I still, from the late 70s to right now, when I was last in high school, there's still this shift about the adults and the lack of belief in our kids on having those advanced courses, about having those opportunities. So I just think that we all need to reflect. And right now that the education system is at a baseline, because of this disease, it's time to reevaluate a lot of our practices.
Not only reevaluate, looking at funding prohibits us to be able to offer things to everybody as well. So when you look at reallocating that funding so everybody can have an opportunity, whether it's to have Spanish or a foreign language, we don't have that. We have one foreign language teacher for 654 kids. Guess what? Some kids aren't going to get it. Unfortunately, it's the luck of the draw. But now let's shift gears for a second. Let's talk for a little bit. Say you're from a rural area and you don't have a lot of cultural diversity within your building, and you want to start talking about equity. How do you take the steps to move forward with making that a reality? And let's talk about potential systems and how do we create systems and partnerships within schools? Don, I'm going to kick it back to you.
Yeah, sure. So one of the really awesome things that I've been involved in the last little over a year now is with Tracy Browder. She and I formed together Grit Crew EDU, which we have really kind of facilitated a lot of the conversation, the Lead Like a Pirate chat on Saturday mornings amongst a lot of leaders from across the country who join in that space and really help them to kind of work through this exactly. So what does it look like when we lead with equity, right? We, thinking about what needs to take place inside of our schools to ensure that everyone in the school really has that kind of belief, right? We were just talking about in our students' ability and even in ourselves to do this work, because all of this work, when we're talking about, equity, anti-racism education, starts with us. We have to be, as educators, confident in our ability to address the needs of every student, right? And know when, like, okay, hold on a second. As an individual, I maybe don't have the information that I need, the resources that I need. Where's that place that I go to? And so Tracy and I decided that we wanted to kind of work together with leaders to be able to build out these systems inside of schools. And what that looks like really is just starting with PLCs. What does the professional learning community in the school look like that centers on equity and anti-racism first and foremost? So, we have our content area PLCs. We come together, we look at the curriculum, we look at data surrounding our students, those kinds of things. But where does that PLC branch out to say that we want to work together within this building to make sure that learning in the space that we are in, within the building, the way that we approach behavior and interventions and those kinds of things is equitable and anti-racist simultaneously? Who are those folks that want to partner together? So we recognize in the building, we have this small group, maybe we're starting with initially, that is our PLC for equity and anti-racism education, but also leading with courage to say, we want to step outside of that building and who are the folks that we want to bring in. So with intentionality, leaders need to be willing to go to the community and say, you know what, we've got some situations in our building that we maybe need to address with regard to your children. Who wants to partner with us and this PLC that we have within the community, getting others involved, board members, superintendents, people who want to come together in the same space to talk about the real issues that plague kids. And that is courageous work, right? It is, because again, it starts with us. And sometimes we don't feel like we know everything or have, all the parts and pieces to put together to really be able to go ahead first in this work. And that's why the PLC is so important. Starting with those groups of folks in our workspace who are willing to step out and courage to lead and courage, and then finding ways that we can bring individuals outside the school building into this work with us so that our reach is far and wide. And we have other voices, much needed voices in the conversation who are telling us at school about what it's like for kids maybe outside our school or the experiences that they bring home that we don't always get to hear. Very important to have those voices.
So think about it for a second. One of the things I'm charged with is also teaching students to understand and be able to comprehend how people feel, even from the middle level ages. So between 10 and 14, I'm telling a 12-year-old, you need to understand why people identify in certain ways. It's a very hard thing to teach because it's not, in our health curriculum, we talk about things like this, but it's not embedded in general curriculum all the time. So it's not a language that is obviously always being spoken. So let's just pass this around a little bit. Let's toss this around. So when we're talking about systems in your school, what do you have to be able to help kids and parents, community members understand and become empathetic, compassionate, and really dig in and understand these things? Let's go up to Josh. Josh.
One of the things that I like to use, obviously, is social media to spread out the word and what the vision is of my chair. And like this whole month, National Hispanic Heritage Month, You see, every day I highlight an individual, but you see, I can't highlight individuals that my kids see always. Mis hijos always see Jennifer Lopez, always see the stars. I don't need them to be seeing that. They see that by popular culture. I've been posting about scientists, astronauts, presidents of universities. They need to be seeing other people that look like themselves in different roles, not just as entertainers. Don't get me wrong. That's fine. And other people will highlight that. But who's highlighting that scientist that created a brand new glove for sign language? Who is doing that astronaut, male and female, that's in charge of space centers? Who's doing all that to highlight that our people, different races, can accomplish different goals? And that's part of it. That was your original question, Dean. It's about making sure that you do a concerted effort to highlight people that are not what the norm is, that are other fields, that we promote these other fields. Because who's ever learned about a Hispanic scientist? I got Jennifer Lopez all over, so what? I've got all these. You know what? I've posted a couple of very famous athletes. All right, it is because kids take the athletic route, but also the intellectual route. How are we promoted that? It goes back to the previous thing that I said. No one promoted me or said, "Hey, Josh, you could stay in this advanced class in 7th grade." I tapped out. I was surrounded by the smart kids, so I tapped out. I didn't believe in me, and then it was easy for me to get out. Oh yeah, you don't belong here. So I need to we all need to make sure that we highlight the current people that are in the sciences, in the education field, whatever, politics, whatever it is, because our kids can accomplish that goal, not just the entertainment route. So it's about putting a focus on those other fields that they are open to.
Trelane, how about you? So when you're looking at educational materials, curriculum, other things, or systems within your building, how can you ensure that you have systems in place that would celebrate and recognize, inclusivity as a whole?
Yeah, so actually, this is something that it is in progress, right? That I'm working on as I continue to learn about the school and the school community. So I think one of the things that I am really want to pay attention to is the curriculum, and so what is actually happening and how where are those opportunities for us to do that highlighting that Josh is talking about, and giving teachers more agency and more or license, if you will, to look at the curriculum that's been given to them and say, okay, how can I make this more culturally appropriate for the students in front of me? So having them to always ask that question before they actually begin, sort of what's been already prepared for them, and say, okay, is this really going to do the job in terms of helping my students to come to the content ready to learn it, right? So what are those connections that I can make? And I think that one really positive thing that our district has done, we just engaged in an equity audit. And so we are about to look at all facets of how we do school. And that's super exciting. And being on that committee and engaging in those conversations about how parents are experiencing racism and equity from their lens, right? And how they're seeing that in their children's experience, how teachers are experiencing that if they are teachers of color, or the lack thereof in our district in particular. So how are we going to address those things? So the systems, I think, are in process, and I think little by little we're definitely making some strides.
Those equity committees across the country right now, they're all popping up through public education. And it's an important time to be able to check all those boxes to ensure we're doing everything correctly to represent all groups. There's definitely a good part that's needed. Beatrice, how about you for systems?
Yes, I'm thinking back to what Don said and how important it is to go back to even the value system. Do we really have a team that believes all students can succeed? And that's going to be important, starting with that. However, when I'm thinking of holistically, what systems are best going to support our students, what Principal Tovar said was how important it is that someone makes contact with our students, someone that they can relate to and truly see as an example. So I remember my first encounter with and I know it's maybe saying it out loud now, it sounds kind of crazy, but I remember I met the first Latino ever that had ever gone to college when I was in middle school. And I was so impressed by this teacher. And when he introduced himself to me, and he was the first person to ever tell me, hey, you can go to college. And I couldn't believe that he had gone to college. And all of a sudden, it became an accessible goal. And so we teach our students that this is something that they can accomplish, but we also have to provide the skill set that's going to help them to reach that. And so one of the things that we are having to revamp and re-kick back off, I think with our jobs and as educators, we can get bombarded with a lot of things. However, if we keep what's important prioritized, then that's going to help us out. So one of the things that we are re-kicking off this year is to teach our students how to set goals, how they're going to track them, and because that's a skill set that they're going to need for life. And why not start now? Leadership doesn't have to begin when you're 18 or in college or after you graduate. It can begin now. And that truly, by equipping our students to be able to do that, that's going to help them so that they feel that they have some sort of control for their own success. And I think that's going to be very important. It has to be attainable, achievable, and they have to believe it. And I think that when we start investing in our students with this, it has definitely helped out. So that's one of our priorities that we're doing this year to truly help our students meet their goals.
I love the fact that you're doing goals for all your students. I do it every quarter. We just sent out our Google form. We want your academic goal, we want your behavioral goal, and your social emotional goal. What are they? Keep them simple. Can you measure them? How are you going to put a target that you can shoot for? And then all of a sudden, guess what? It's equal for everybody. It doesn't matter. And I get so excited when I hear people doing things like that. Let's switch gears one more time. Let's talk about anti-racism in schools. How do we go about ensuring that is being taught cross-curricular? Not only it's a language that has to be spoken in every curriculum that we have. And Dawn, I'm going to kick it back to you. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, and this one is really challenging. Equity in itself, we talk about inclusivity, equity, those are challenging, but those are things we can kind of really put our finger on, right? We can identify our students, we can work to build relationships, we can put systems into place. But anti-racism education it's almost one of those individual journeys that as educators and leaders, we choose to embark on. We choose to go down this path that says, we want to put in place the kind of curricula in our classrooms that allow students to understand the impacts of not just in individual racism, individualized race forms of racism, but the systemic and structural racism that is just throughout everything that we encounter in a day. And so that can be very challenging work for those who really either don't know where to start, like where do I begin with this work? What do I need to know before I begin? It's not just it's multifaceted, right? So I'm a content area teacher, perhaps, I know my content well, but now you're asking me to go about building out learning targets and adding things into my curriculum to make sure that, my students understand all of the issues that exist with racism and how it affects somebody maybe sitting next to me in class that I didn't understand before. That's scary work. It's scary sometimes for teachers. It's scary sometimes for kids to dive into those tough conversations in the classroom, but it starts with that internal work, right? And as leaders, we need to figure out ways that we can get the information that we need ourselves to step out and encourage and say, you know what, I know this is something maybe that we don't all know how to do, but how are we going to come together? We're going to find the processes that we put in place to get ourselves the information that we need to feel confident to start in this work. And something that I always tell folks is you can't wait. Just start right now with anything, something small. Anything is better than nothing, right? You'll learn and you'll grow just like you learned and just like you grew in your content when you first came into your classroom. You didn't know everything. You may not know everything about anti-racism education now, but you can find these little things that you can bring into the conversation in your classroom. But first and foremost, above all, when we're talking about, anti-racism work in the classroom specifically, I think that you were talking about the language earlier, Dean. The language is trust and building trusting relationships with our students to know that if we're going to come to them with a topic related to anti-racism in our content area embedded, that they trust us in that we're coming to them with that topic because it's an important one. and they're going to hear us, and they know that there's value in everything that we bring. So our passion for our topic, our passion for raising up anti-racist children, just combined with the courage that we have to know that we don't know what we don't know, but we are willing and committed to telling our kids that, right? We need to be able to tell our kids we don't know what we know about everything, but we're sure willing to learn together with them, because this is important stuff. I think Josh said, the future is in our classroom. I had one of my pre-service teachers many years ago give me a sign that's still hanging on my wall. It says, "The future of the world is in your classroom today." And that is the truth, if nothing else is the truth, right? That our kids are going to go out, leave our classrooms. They're going to work among all sorts of people. And the content that we bring them has to be, just interlaced with anti-racist teaching and learning, and the concepts that are going to help them to just in general be better people when they enter society.
One of the things I always look at is, how do we break down our own implicit biases on things? Because all we know is what we know.
Right.
And I meet new kids coming in, and they're different religions, different backgrounds. I want to know about them. I want to learn about them. I want to be able to figure out what makes them tick and why they do what they do and who they are and who they are. That stuff inspires me. But when you have a regular curriculum that doesn't allow you that ability to be flexible within it, then you got to start saying, okay, how do we change it? How do we make those differences to ensure that we can talk that same language across the board? So big and so important. Kick it down to Trelane. Trelane, let's talk to you a little bit about this.
So anti-racism and equity work really needs to be the work. Right. It needs not to be anymore an aside conversation, an add-on. It really needs to be everything that we do. And I think that it is tough to make it that way, just because of what you just said, Dean, because there's so much stuff that's already sort of scripted and ready for, quote unquote, ready for teachers to go after. But I do think that that introspection as an educator is definitely where it starts, where Don mentioned. I have to know within myself that I have implicit bias, and I have to own that, and I have to notice it. I have to begin to notice it. I have to give someone else permission to actually call me on that, right? And that's a super duper vulnerable thing.
That's okay, though. That's okay.
It's totally
that shows
okay.
that you're willing to grow. I
right.
love that.
But it's the only way, really, that we're going to sort of get over this hump of being able to identify, oh, you know what? That should not be a part of my lexicon. That should not be a part of my curriculum. That should not be a part of my vocabulary. And I know why. And I'm going to go after learning, as you said, about this particular culture or this kind of way of being, so that I don't continue to make that mistake.
Not only learning, but celebrate it. Celebrate it. Let everyone know that you're not afraid to step out of what you feel as though would be maybe your own personal biases and beliefs. That's so powerful. And I'll tell you, you want to talk about a ripple effect. That's huge. That's exactly what would happen. Beatrice.
Yes. Wow. That was great, Principal Clark, what you just said, because that takes a lot of courage to be able to face and really talk about that conversation. And you know what? We do want to have those conversations with our children, but you're right. It begins with us, the adults. Do we have that type of courage to sit down and, talk about the big elephant in the room, how they say, I think, when I'm thinking of our students and how vulnerable their minds are right now. I think that even racism and all of that is something that somewhere along the line in life, something was learned, and that's a behavior that somewhere that it builds. And so I think that right now I have the privilege of working in elementary, where I think that we are like the first responders to intervening. What can we do to help prevent that from happening? And when I'm thinking of that, it's what was mentioned earlier. Hispanic Heritage Month is one opportunity, but we have so many different celebrations. And I do believe as an educator that education is the most powerful strategy that we have, so that we can combat racism. I think that when we have the opportunity to learn from one another's cultures, that's actually what's going to help bring us together, because we're not all the same, and we're not trying to say everyone is the same. It's about recognizing that we're all different, but celebrating our differences so that we can come together and work towards a common goal. Because we're, you know what, especially with this time, we all need each other. You know, who doesn't need an extra friend right now? But we need to make sure that what opportunities are we providing so that our students are able to learn and celebrate the diversity. There's no other Beatrice in this world, and that's a great thing. However, you know, no one's going to know about that unless we're educating, having the opportunity to talk. And so I think that's a great thing that we can come back to, in how different our classrooms have changed. We want our students to be able to have those discussions, but what can we do to create those opportunities across the campus so it becomes one of our norms?
Love it. Principal Tovar is one of the best at celebrating every student and every teacher that works in his building. So why don't you talk a little bit about that? It doesn't get any better than what he does.
I just think that it's one, like you said, one of the things is celebration. Every morning that I do morning announcements, I say good morning in 6 languages, because that covers everybody in that home of mine. That covers everybody, from Tlacalo to Vietnamese to French, everybody. Because you know what, I always remind them that within that little school, it covers the whole world. And then we have to be able to make sure that we role model the expectation. Well, we say this, but it's a fact. Us as the people that sit in our chairs need to role model openly with our team members and with our hijos, always to have those conversations out in the open. And I go to my kids from Vietnam, hey, how do you say this? And I always greet them in the morning, you know, Yao Buse, Kong, you know, little things, or Maganda Numaga, whatever it might be, just to make a connection. And then I teach me, well, how do you say that? But I do it out in the open because, you know what, we're one community. And another thing is that everything's a teachable moment. Because the other day, I think on Friday, I connected with Kentucky with Ryan Scott with a newcomer school, and we sent them a video. And I put them together, all my kids, and they're from different parts of Latin America. But then when I just wanted to make sure that they all said their country together, that we're all in one, you know, El Salvador, Honduras, Mexico. And for a second, they're like, oh, you from Mexico. No. That was a teachable moment. It's us, the Jaguars. That's where it's crucial. It's important that we don't create those divisions. I didn't mean to create a division, but that was a teachable moment for me too. It was a teachable moment, and it's about growth. And I was reminding the kids is that we're stronger together. So those kids in Kentucky, I'm trying to reach out to the kids in Houston that have the similar school, is that we're all in the same battle together, a battle of moving forward in this country, to take in the opportunities that is provided to us as a culture, but also understanding that everyone around us is looking at us. We're always on how we get along together. And it doesn't matter what the pigmentation is, we all have one purpose, is to be better and take opportunities that we have offered to us in this country. So it's about role modeling the expectations, doing it out, you know, overtly to where people see it, and have teachable moments to redirect what is appropriate and not appropriate in a loving way, that's our role as parents there at the school.
That's a learning community. When you talk about all those pieces together and everybody rowing in the same direction, absolutely love that, Josh. Thanks for bringing that up. Here's the last hot topic that I have, and it's really kind of retaining and finding staff, diverse staff for your buildings, and trying to keep them. You know, it's in our building, we don't have a lot of diversity. So when I have an opportunity to find somebody of a different culture and a background, I don't get many that apply. So how do you bring them to the table? Because we do have a small percentage of kids that would love to be able to have that as a person like that as a teacher in our building. So Don, I'm going to kick it to you. Just talk about that for a moment, please.
Absolutely. So, you know, I think it really begins, to be honest, with our university level teacher preparation programs. We have got to do better at the university level of building out programs that allow us to bring in a more diverse teaching population to start, right? Building out internship programs where we're going out and finding young people in our high schools who are interested or thinking about becoming teachers, or maybe they haven't even thought about it yet. Maybe they think that's something that's out of reach for them. And we have folks come in and start to have those conversations with them. So let's make our pre-service teaching pool more diverse, right? Let's start there. But then as leaders, let's start having those, being very intentional about reaching out and seeing how we can also be involved in bringing more diverse a pool of educators into our building. And then when we're having conversations with potential new hires, we need to be right? Even when we don't have the most diverse pool of candidates, we need to be having conversations about equity and anti-racism with those candidates, because even if we cannot get the diverse candidates in to our space yet, we need to know that the teachers who we are bringing in definitely have knowledge and understanding of things related to inclusivity, equity, and anti-racism education. That is mission critical, right? And then when we do have the opportunity to have those diverse teachers in place, I shared with Dean, I am the only Black teacher in my district. And have been for some time. We've had a couple of one teacher retire, another teacher left the district. It's my home and I love it there, but it's an area that we just, we don't have that pool of candidates who are coming in. But at the same time, I enjoy the space that I work in. I have a great relationship with my administrators. And I think that's what's really key, is that when we do have those the diversity in place in the teaching pool, is that we are establishing the relationships and doing check-ins and how are things going. It's been rough being, teaching while Black in the last few years. I'll be honest with you, it's been rough. And, but we do the work. We're there to do the work. And I think having diverse teaching staff in front of our kids is so important. It's another lens through which they can see the world. And so more than anything, we have to try, and we have to make sure that when we do have diverse teaching staff in place, that we're checking in and we're making sure that, things are going okay, so that they stay, so that they're supported, so that they're part of the networks and part of the PLCs, part of building out the curriculum and identifying student needs, and that they're also able to successfully build relationships with students in the building. All of those things, are really important.
So looking at the demographics of your buildings individually, Beatrice, in your building, do you have a vast diversity of teachers from different backgrounds, or are you pretty much common to what the general population in your building is?
I think here over the last years, we do have more of a diversity that has come, and we've had the opportunity to bring in different team members. And you know what? I think it's so important, like what was mentioned earlier, that as we're bringing our team in, are we bringing in the people that have whose values aligned to what we believe, what our school vision, what our school mission is. And I do believe that it also begins, it's not an overnight process, but we begin by building our students right now. What are you going to be when you grow up? Think back to who made that biggest impact in your life. What made me want to become an educator? Are we creating that same feel with our students? And so I do think that we've been privileged in that we've seen a new generation of graduates, but what are we doing to bring them to the profession and keep them here, to make sure that they feel like they're contributing, that they feel that they are being supported? It has been very rough, especially with the adjustment we've had to make over the last year and a half. However, this is a great opportunity where my new teachers have a different skill set with technology, that they're also having the opportunity to maybe teach some of our veteran teachers, and we're all learning together. So I think that everyone brings different strengths, and finding that strength so that they can also become a contributor to our team.
Trelane, your building?
So this particular topic is very near and dear to my heart, this aspect of equity. So I am the only Black educator in my building. I have just now hired a paraprofessional who is a Black male. So that's it as far as Black or African American. I've just been hiring some other Latino, those who identify as Latino or Hispanic. I have a few, but the majority of my staff does not look like my students or me. And it's definitely something that we are working on, and even now continuing to try to do some hiring, because right now it is really tough all around the country, the shortage of teachers and paraprofessionals, people who are interested in coming into schools right now. It's very, very sad that I think as educators have not necessarily done a great job of inviting folks into this space and actually talking about it in positive ways that say this is a great profession, this is rewarding. Yes, it is time consuming. Yes, takes a lot of work, but it is the most amazing profession that you could enter into, and really giving that energy to it. And I think, as Beatrice was saying, the kids, telling the kids, like, you can be me. I had a second grader who came and said, I'm going to be the principal. And I said, absolutely, yes, you can. So it's things like that, because they finally see someone who they can identify with and say, oh, that's a possibility for me. So I do think it has to start with our elementary and our middle school students, and planting that seed, so that when they go to university, that is the major that they choose.
I'm listening to you and I'm smiling, because you're bringing the energy and you're bringing the passion, and that's beyond color, that's beyond background, that's beyond anything. That's just connectivity. About 4 years ago, we hired our first African-American female on our staff, and we probably had 3 students of color in our building. And I remember when we hired her and she was a paraprofessional, those students clamored to her. It was just like they had somebody that they could just go to. And I said to myself, how important is this? And a very highly educated woman. She was fantastic. She left to go to law school after 1 year. But I asked her on her way out, I said, how did you feel being in a building that you were the only person of color? And she goes, I never once thought of it like that, because I always felt like I belonged from the day that I walked in the door. And she goes, furthermore, the 3 or 4 kids that really gravitated to me, I thought it was the best thing that I ever had an opportunity to do for your school. So again, she taught all students. We didn't see color. We didn't see religion. We didn't see background. She just was great with kids. And I love that. And again, we need to do more of that in our district. Josh, how about you?
I think that we're doing an effective job there at Memorial Pathway with a good mixture of our team members. And we've been blessed by having a new assistant principal who is a female PhD. And that's one of the things that I keep on promoting with everybody, that you can do it. Si se puede, is making sure that we instill that in our kids, so they see a male and a female in the leadership positions in education. And it's about continuing promoting that whole aspect of it, from the morning that you can to the afternoon that you can, whatever moment it is to instill in that. But you know what? I think it has to be a systemic approach to this. It has to be something that has to do with the ISDs and the local universities, because that needs to go from the teaching programs at the high school level. What do we do at that point? What kind of MOUs are being created between the high schools, the ISDs, and the universities to make sure that we do a pipeline? Because a lot of these kids do want to become educators since their freshman year. They were inspired by a middle school teacher. They were inspired by an elementary teacher. What are we doing to build that bridge to make sure that they continue? Where are we putting our money into our field? Because we all know I'm still short 3 team members. And we already just finished the first report card. I'm short an instructional aide, and we just finished the first report card, 9 weeks. So this is not just let's present an image, let's do that. No, it has to be a systemic approach on making sure that we have the best candidates and that they want to be there. That's the most important thing. Because I don't know about you guys, in 29 years, I've interviewed people and say, I want to be a teacher so I could have summers off. Bye. I decided I didn't do it in business, so I wanted to become a teacher. Bye. Talk about hurting kids. Hello. I don't care if I need somebody. I want to take you right now. That's not the approach, especially when all our kids, even the AP, IB kids, they're all at risk right now because of this nonsense that we're going through, and it's not going to go away. So what are we doing as the adults in the room? What are we doing as the ISD leaders with the university presidents to make sure we have that pipeline? Let's use the word pipeline, not in a negative way with the orange jumpsuit. Let's use a pipeline as a positive way for student success and the future of our profession.
Absolutely love it, Josh. Spot on. Hey, this has been a great talk on equity. And again, we could probably go on for hours about this topic, but I got a couple of things I want to throw at Dawn right now, if I could. Education Undone. What is that? Can you tell us a little bit about it, please?
Yes, Education Undone was born, a little over a year ago. Just something I put together, a place that, I wanted to organize all of what I do, a little bit of blogging there, lots of resources. It's just a place where folks can go and learn more about me, learn more about how they can connect with me. I have an entire, one of my favorite things on Education Undone is my AntiRacism education library. I have an entire library of resources there for educators who are interested in doing the work in their classroom There are frameworks there for learning, anti-racist teaching and learning, and just many things that will help educators who are looking to kind of revamp their curriculum through an anti-racist lens. It's all about weaving anti-racism education throughout. And so, Education Undone for me really is simply this. It's that we, as we like to say in the field, are always reimagining education, right? And that we'll never be done with our work as educators. Something that we know is that we are lifelong learners ourselves, right? Our own education will also never be finished. So with all those things in mind, I just wanted to create a place where I could just folks could land if they need support with anything that's related to teaching and learning, curriculum instruction in their classroom. So that's really what I strive to do. And out of all of that came Plan Like a Pirate. I'm super excited about. Just a few weeks away. Our cover launch was last week. So I'm really thrilled. It's the latest release in the Teach Like a Pirate series. And so in there, in Plan Like a Pirate, I just discuss the daily framework that I use for ensuring that students come energized into the classroom and ready to learn every day. It's about a foundation built on curiosity, hope, advocacy, responsibility, and tolerance, the things that really help my kids to know that they're in a safe space, they're safe to learn everything that they need to know to get about life, and that they'll be successful in doing so long after they leave my classroom. So there's also a lot of anti-racism education in there. How do we actually go about weaving anti-racism education into our teaching and learning daily? And it's just really my manifesto of all the years that I've been in the classroom. This is what works for me. So hopefully a lot of folks will be able to learn and grow from that piece. And it's just exciting. I'm really looking forward to it. So
where can they find the book when it comes out? Where is it going to be located? We're going to put it out on our network here. We're going to get it out to everybody, but where can they find it?
Well, hopefully you'll be able to get a copy of that on Amazon.com for sure, but also over at DBC Inc. at Dave Burgess Consulting. Dave and Shelley were just gracious and kind in helping me get this book off the ground. I'm super excited about all the support that they have offered me throughout this entire process. And so you can find me there at DaveBurgessConsulting.com. Interested in anything related to having me come visit your school, getting copies of books for your school, that kind of thing, you can certainly find me there. And always check out educationundone.com too. You can join my mailing list and just catch up with me on how things are going.
Well, Dave's incredible. He's been on our show before. Shelley and Beth with Lead LAP. They're incredible people. We're going to get them on one of these days if we can ever catch up with them. But at the end of the day, tonight was a night all about equity. And Don Harris, you're a rock star in what you're doing. Continue leading the charge because it's so important. Listen, on behalf of Josh, Trelane, Beatrice, listen, tonight was a great night for all you out there. Please retweet this if you get an opportunity after you watch this. Spread the word. We're all in this together. And there's no doubt that we can make a difference if we all do the little things right. I wish you guys all a great evening. Anybody else want to say something quickly before we go?
Just also follow Principal Cafele because he has a lot of videos on this. It's crucial that we get different voices. And he is one of the master's PhDs in this topic, principalcafele.com.
Hey, great stuff. Well, listen, I ask everybody on cast here to stay on after this. We're going to stay on for a couple of minutes, but that's all we have for tonight. We wish you guys a great night. Thank you so much for taking part. And
Dean, I thought that maybe Principal Taban was going to say goodnight in 6 different languages.
Oh, okay. Let's start the train. How about it, Josh?
Hey, school's in the morning, not at night. But I'll record the morning announcements just for you, Beatriz.
Hey, great stuff. You guys are all rock stars. Listen, hope you have a great Sunday. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next Sunday night with our next featured guest. But until then, remember, equity matters. Give everybody that shot to be great.